Hey, it's Ben from Elephant Herd Consulting, and today I want to talk about the importance of capital turnover or capital efficiency as well as profitability. So I'm going to use Allbirds as my example and then talk about a couple other, compare them to a couple other public brands. But let's just start with something really basic. Brands are machines that are designed to maximize returns given capital input. So there's two important parts of that equation. You have to have high margins or good enough margins, but you also have to be capital efficient. And you can be successful in both ways. You can be successful with really high margin, low capital efficiency or low turnover, or you can be successful with super high capital turnover and lower margins. And ideally, you do both, right? So we'll look at some companies in a quadrant, right? Here's an example of four quadrants, right? Low capital turnover and low margin down here in the bottom left. High capital turnover but low margin here in the bottom right. High margin, low capital turnover, top left. And then the place that we'd all love to be, high margin and high capital turnover here in the top right. So let's first look at Allbirds, company that went public November 3rd, 2021, priced at 15, came out at 20, a little over 21 bucks, ended up that day closing at 28. To pick on them a little, they left a lot of money on the table, $275 million, which they certainly could use now because their current cash is about $132 million and they lose a lot of money. Since that day, their stock has declined precipitously, down 96%, closing on December 19th of 2023 at $1.11. Over the course of their life, they raised about $200 million. Highest valuation was $1.6 billion. And then interestingly, if you look at their current market cap, about $170 million, less their cash, the going concern is being valued at about $38 million. So not great, right? Let's look at why. Well, one problem that they've consistently had here is lousy margins. So their gross margin over the past 12 months has been 37%. Higher, more recently, negative EBITDA margin over the past 12 months of negative 50% here. That's actually not right. Let me do that math again. Negative 40%, excuse me. So a little better, but still negative, right? And another problem with these guys is their revenues are going down. So, if you look at 3Q 2023, they were at 73 million a year ago, down to 57 million, right? The quarter before, they're at 71 million. The quarter a year ago, they were at 78 million. So they've been seeing revenue declines, which isn't great. Obviously, with that type of margin structure, not surprising that they are not generating free cash flow. They're consuming, not generating cash from operations. They're consuming a lot of cash, right? So let's look at their capital turnover, their inventory turnover. A lot of inventory, 242 days of inventory outstanding. Capital turnover is at 1.6, and a cash conversion cycle of 214 days. So not great. Again, the stock down 96%, as opposed to the S&P, which has been up 6%, and then the market cap of 170 million. So let's look at a company that has low margins but great capital turnover. Now, it's hard to find these in brands, so I'm going to use Costco as my example here. And I'm going to keep looking for a better direct brand. But here's Costco, latest quarter reported, about $37 billion in sales, right, for the 12 months, about $119 billion. I mean, these margins, 13%. I mean, it's like, for a brand, that would be terrifying. EBITDA margin of 4%. So you're like, well, how do they do it? How do they produce all this cash? How do they produce all this cash from operations? And the answer is they have phenomenal inventory turnover, phenomenal capital turnover and efficiency here. 33 days of inventory outstanding an inventory turnover ratio of the past 12 months of over 11. And when you look back at their latest reported quarter, is at over 14. Cash conversion cycle, 5 days. I mean, it's phenomenal. Results in a negative net working capital, right? I mean, that's pretty amazing. And, investors seem to like it. So in that same time period, November 3rd, 2021 to December 19th of 23, the stock has gone up 37% as compared to the S&P 500, as represented by SPY, at 6%, 293 billion in market cap. Let's look at a classic example of luxury, right? Super high margin, but low capital turnover, low inventory turnover on purpose. I mean, it would be antithetical to the luxury space to have high inventory turnover. But Hermes doing about 12.8 billion of, this is euros, by the way, so my signs are off. But let's look at their margins. 71% gross margin, a 44% EBITDA margin for the trailing 12 months, even higher in the most recently reported quarter. And the thing is a cash machine, right? 4 billion euros of cash from operations, almost 4.6 billion. But as we noted earlier, inventory turnover not much better than Allbirds, twice a year. Much better cash conversion cycle though, 139 days, and a much stronger days sales outstanding, 186. Investors love it. Over that same time period, November 3rd, 21 to December 19th, 23, stock is up 43% as compared to 6% in the S&P, and market cap at about 209 billion. So pretty impressive. Let's look at a company now that is sort of moving into the best of both worlds, the top right quadrant of higher margins and higher capital turnover. So Lululemon, strong rate revenues, obviously, gross margin 57%, but look at that EBITDA margin 26%, generating a lot of cash, 14% of free cash flow, cash from operations 21%. And then going back to the capital, 151 days of days sales outstanding, 2.4, so slightly better than Hermes at 2. Cash conversion cycle of 130 days versus Hermes is of 139, so slightly better there. But if we go all the way back, here's Allbirds 242, 1.6, and 214. Lululemon, slightly better than S&P, 8% versus 6%, on that same time frame. Crocs, probably more analogous to Allbirds. Similar margins, 54% and then 27%. So similar to Lululemon in the trailing 12. Again, these guys know how to generate lots of cash. 21% as a percentage of sales versus Lululemon's of 14%. And then Crocs, 24% cash from operations versus Lululemon's 21%. So even stronger there, right? And, what's interesting here is even stronger on days outstanding inventory, 92 days. I mean, that's pretty impressive. 4 turns a year, 77 days on cash conversion cycle. Little surprisingly, why isn't this company doing better, right? I mean, why don't investors like this story more? The stock is down 39%. But, these are numbers that I think any brand would be super excited to be knocking down. Again, maybe even more analogous to Allbirds just because of the running shoe or footwear. 59% gross margin, 12%. Just to remind you of where Allbirds was in that Allbirds is 37% and negative 40%. So, a world away from Allbirds. And then if you look at here we are on. Days outstanding, 213, 1.7, and 214 for cash conversion cycle, as compared to 242. I mean, so pretty similar, actually, to Allbirds. So the difference really in these two is the margin structure. Investors also down on these guys. They're down 18% over that time period, versus Allbirds negative 96%. So, looking at these guys back on the quadrant, what I would encourage everybody is, like, if you're trying to get to that next level, really think about your capital turnover and how you can improve that. Not just, your margin. I mean, margin's obviously important, but the capital turnover, getting those inventory turns, being much more efficient with your capital, is a lever that you can really press in 2024. And it also helps you reduce your borrowing. So, as you improve your capital turnover, your net working capital needs are going to go down. You're going to need to borrow less money, and you can generate more of your cash yourself. I'm going to post this on the site. If you have any questions, please reach out. If you are looking for help in getting to the next level, please reach out. I'm Ben at elephantherdconsulting.com. I'd love to talk to you about your business, find out more, and see if I can help. Thank you.